My son did not even look up from his plate when he said it. Mom, did you get the email about your trust fund? For a moment, I thought I misheard him. A trust fund. For me, I was 71 years old, sitting at my son's dinner table in Selwood, trying to enjoy an ordinary evening with him and my 92-year-old mother, Margaret. We were not the kind of family that had trust funds lying around. What email? I asked. David, I did not know I had anything like that. He finally raised his head. Something tight pulled across his expression, confusion mixed with worry. Without another word, he pulled his laptop closer and clicked into a folder on the screen. Mom, he said quietly, these are the statements. 10 years of them. He turned the laptop toward me. A list filled the screen: annual updates, beneficiary notices, contact confirmations, all addressed to me. None that I had ever seen in my life. My chest tightened. This can't be real, I whispered. Behind me. My mother's voice trembled. That cannot be right. Evelyn, that cannot be right. I stared at the screen, reading my own name over and over again, each line stamped with dates that marked some of the hardest years of my life. Years when I worked extra shifts. Years when I sold my jewelry. Years when I cut pills in half to make prescriptions last. How were these sent? I managed. David clicked deeper. Mom, look at this email address linked to the account. The contact line glowed on the screen. V. Heart. It was not mine. But I recognized the pattern immediately. It looked exactly like the usernames Lydia, my daughter, always created. She had that habit of shortening everything, adding strange suffixes she claimed were more secure. A slow, cold wave rose inside me. I reached out to steady the laptop, but my hands were trembling too much to hold it still. David lowered his voice. Mom, someone changed your contact information. I swallowed hard, feeling the first sharp tear in the story I thought I knew about my life. And in that moment, I understood this dinner was not the end of anything. It was the beginning. I kept my hands folded long after David closed the laptop. The screen stayed burned behind my eyes. And with it came the weight of years I had learned to push aside. Mom, he said softly, you should have never struggled like that. I let out a breath. I did what I had to do. Those winters in Oregon had a way of pressing down on a person wet, cold, relentless, the kind that seeped into your bones. During the year after my husband passed, I picked up double shifts at the school's front office, staying until the hallways were empty. My joints ached, but I kept moving. I sold the last of his old tools, then a bracelet he bought me in our first year of marriage. David looked at me now, sadness flickering across his face. I remember visiting you after work. The house felt different. It was. I admitted. The heater was broken that winter. Why didn't you tell me? I did not want to be a burden. But the truth was sharper. I had been stretching everything: pills, groceries, hope. One night, I held a bottle of my heart medication in my palm and counted the tablets. I chose a sack of groceries instead, promising myself I would be careful. Lydia had stopped by that same week, standing in my kitchen with an exasperated sigh. You really should let me help you organize things. Mom, she said, you never understand all this online stuff. She was right. I did not. I handed her a folder of documents, emails, account papers, the passwords I scribbled on a notepad because I kept forgetting them. She typed quickly, her fingers flying over my laptop. There, she said. I cleaned everything up. I thanked her without understanding what she had taken from me in that moment. Now, sitting at David's table, the realization stung. I had given her access. I had opened the door without knowing there was something inside worth stealing. David reached across the table, his voice low. Those years were not your fault, Mom. I nodded, but inside something heavier shifted. preparing me for the truth waiting ahead. David pulled the laptop back in front of him, fingers already tapping fast. "Let me check the back-end settings," he murmured, his voice tight. "There has to be some mistake." I watched the anxiety build across his face, line by line. As he navigated through menus I could barely understand. My mother sat beside me, wringing her hands slowly, her breath shallow. "There," David said suddenly. He pointed to a line on the screen. "Contact email. Lydia, Hart A. Youth." My name was nowhere in sight. "That is not mine," I said, the words leaving my mouth slower than my thoughts. "I have never used anything like that," David swallowed. "It matches the style she uses. Do you remember when this might have been changed?" I shook my head automatically, but my pulse lurched when he clicked deeper. A timestamp appeared. 10 years earlier, the month I had been hospitalized for emergency tests. David's jaw tightened. "Mom." The update was done during that week. Margaret pressed a trembling hand to her lips. "Oh, Evelyn." I stared at the date. I remembered the beeping machines, the pain in my chest, Lydia sitting by my bed with my purse and paperwork scattered around her. She told the nurses she would help me manage everything. I never imagined she would have touched something that belonged to me. David clicked again, his voice sharpening. "This is even worse." Another log loaded a device description. "Portal accessed from your home Wi-Fi network multiple times," he said. "Mom, this is your router ID." My throat tightened. "She came to the house a lot that year. And she had your passwords," David added quietly. Shame burned hot under my ribs. I pressed my palms together, trying to steady myself. I should have asked more questions. I whispered, "I trusted her." "Trust is not the problem," David said, his voice rising before he caught himself. He exhaled. "What she did with it is." Margaret looked between us, panic in her eyes. "We need help. Someone who understands all this." David nodded slowly. "We do. And we will. But first, we need to know how deep this goes." I felt something inside me turn heavy, as if the truth had been waiting for years and finally had room to land. David handed me my phone. "Call her," he said. "She needs to explain this herself." My fingers trembled as I dialed Lydia's number. She picked up on the second ring. "Mom, can this wait? I am in the middle of something." "It cannot wait," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. "Your brother found the trust account. The email linked to it is not mine. It matches the format you use." There was a pause, sharp, thin. Then Lydia laughed. A sound too quick to be real. "Mom, you're mixing things up. You always get confused with online accounts. I did not create that email," I replied. "And the system shows updates made during the week I was in the hospital 10 years ago." Another pause. "This one longer." "Oh, for heaven's sake," she snapped. "The bank makes mistakes. You know how they are." "No," I said quietly. "This has your naming pattern, Lydia, Hart, Auth. That is not a mistake." Her breathing changed short, uneven. "Stop accusing me of things you don't understand," she hissed. "David is filling your head. He always does this. He found the access logs on my home Wi-Fi." I said, "You were the one using my passwords." Silence. Then the line went dead. I stared at the phone. Stunned. She hung up. David let out a slow breath. "That is not nothing, Mom." My mother looked down at her hands. Lydia has been tense for years. Always pushing, always defensive. Memories surfaced Lydia complaining about how David had it easy, how he never had to worry, how she felt overlooked. The jealousy had shown even when they were children. David spoke quietly. "She asked me for a loan once, said she needed money for some investments. I did not feel right giving it to her. That settled in my chest like a stone." Lydia never asked David for anything unless she had already run out of options. And suddenly, I knew this went deeper than confusion or error. Something in her silence had already told the truth. David walked beside me as we entered Thomas Hale's office near Pioneer Courthouse Square. The building buzzed with quiet conversations and shuffling papers. But my mind stayed fixed on one thing, the laptop screen from last night. Thomas stood when we entered. He was in his mid-60s. A firm but steady presence. "Evelyn," he said, shaking my hand gently. "David told me everything he found. I still do not understand any of it," I admitted. He motioned us to sit. "Then let me start from the beginning." He opened a thick folder. "Your husband set up a trust before he passed. It was meant to give you lifelong stability. Beyond that, he wanted you protected." My breath caught. "Protected from what?" "From hardship," Thomas said, "and from anyone who might try to take advantage of you." David and I exchanged a look. Thomas slid a document across the table. But 10 years ago, the trust contact information changed. According to the system, you authorized it. I stared at the screen. He turned toward me. A digital signature pulsed faintly at the bottom of the page. My signature, or something close to it. "I never saw this," I whispered. "I was in the hospital that week. I remember barely being able to hold a pen." "That is why I am concerned," Thomas said. "Changes like this require deliberate action. This signature, it looks like yours, but the pressure marks are inconsistent. It may have been done when you were vulnerable." David leaned forward. "So someone pushed her to sign, or signed for her?" Thomas nodded slowly. "I cannot say yet, but I am bringing someone in." He picked up the phone. "Caroline Byrne. She is a fraud investigator with the bank. If someone interfered with your trust, she will find it." I felt a tremor run through me, not from fear, but from something sharper, something that had been buried for a decade and was finally beginning to rise. Caroline Byrne arrived with a slim briefcase and a sharper expression than I expected. She introduced herself quickly, then opened her laptop. "I will get straight to it," she said. "There are several issues with your trust account, Mrs. Hartman." David sat beside me, arms crossed, jaw tight. Thomas watched from behind his desk, silent but alert. Caroline clicked through a series of screens. "First," she said, "every notification meant for you was rerouted to another email. All statements, all alerts, all updates." "Which email?" David asked. She turned the laptop toward us. "Lydia, Heart A Youth. The same pattern we saw before." My breath shook. So every message that should have come to me went to her. "Yes," Caroline confirmed. "For 10 years, she opened another file. And there are withdrawals, small amounts, spread out, labeled as administrative fees. Over time, they add up." "How much?" David asked. "Enough to raise suspicion," she said carefully. "Tens of thousands over a decade." Thomas exhaled sharply. Caroline brought up another tab, and here is the access log. Every time someone logged into the trust portal, my heart pounded as I read the entries. User, Lydia. Heart, Youth, device IDs. I recognized as ones Lydia used. Locations, my home Wi-Fi. Her townhouse network, and once, her workplace. She was the primary user. Caroline said, "Not you." The room dimmed around me as memories surged, me selling my car for a fraction of its value. Me cutting my pills in half because my insurance shifted. Me asking Lydia for help with bills only to hear her sigh and say, "Mom, you need to budget better." I wiped at my eyes. She watched me struggle. She watched me give things up. David reached for my hand, his voice raw. "She let you believe you had nothing." A deep, painful truth settled inside me. Lydia had not only taken money, she had taken choices, years, and dignity. The realization hollowed something in my chest, leaving behind a rage I had never felt before. David parked in front of Lydia's townhouse, the one she bragged about buying near Hawthorne Boulevard. My hands shook so badly I kept them pressed against my coat to hide it. He knocked once. Lydia opened the door with a startled expression that hardened the moment she saw me. "Oh, this again," she said. "I already told you." "Mom." David twisted everything. "We need to talk." I said. She crossed her arms. "There is nothing to talk about. You misunderstood an email." David stepped forward. "It was not one email, Lydia. It was 10 years of them." Her jaw clenched. "I did nothing wrong." David opened his backpack and pulled out printed sheets. "These are the IP logs. They show every login to Mom's trust account, your devices, her house Wi-Fi, your office." Lydia's eyes flickered. "Anyone could have used my devices." "Then why?" David said, holding her gaze. "Did all the trust notifications go to an email you created?" Her breath stuttered. Then she straightened, voice rising like a snapped wire. "Because Mom cannot handle money, she never could." I was trying to protect her from herself. She pointed at me. "You would have wasted it. Mom, you always panic. You always crumble." My chest tightened. "That was never your decision." She laughed sharply. "Dad knew I was the only responsible one. That trust was meant for me. I just corrected the mistake he made before he died." The words hit like a physical blow. "He set it up for me," I said, barely getting the sound out, "to keep me safe. He favored David." She shot back. "You always favored him too." "I got nothing. I was always the afterthought." "That is not true," I whispered. "You were my daughter. I trusted you." Her expression twisted. "Then you should have trusted me with the money." David stepped between us, fury shaking through him. "You stole from her. You watched her suffer while you sat here with your perfect house." Lydia looked away, but the silence she offered now was not confusion. It was admission heavy, deliberate, unforgivable. I felt something inside me crack open, not weakly this time, but with a clarity that left no room for doubt. Thomas Hale wasted no time. The morning after we confronted Lydia, he called me into his office again. David sat beside me, calmer than the night before, but still carrying a hard edge beneath his silence. Caroline Byrne already had documents spread across the table. "Mrs. Hartman," she said, "with your permission, we are filing an official fraud report. The evidence is extensive." I nodded, my hands steadier than I expected. "Do it." Caroline clicked through her files. We analyzed all withdrawals. A portion went toward debts linked to private loan companies. Another portion she paused was traced to a down payment on a property under another individual's name. A man Lydia has been dating for roughly 3 years. David let out a bitter laugh. She funneled Mom's trust money into her boyfriend's real estate. "Correct," Caroline replied. "Roughly $40,000 across multiple transactions." I felt heat rise up my neck. Not embarrassment this time, anger. Pure, sharp anger. Lydia had not only stolen from me, she had used my husband's legacy to build a life her boyfriend could enjoy. Thomas leaned forward. "The bank agrees this qualifies as elder financial exploitation. They are cooperating fully. The next step is restoring the trust to you." He slid a new document in front of me. My name appeared again, clean and unaltered. "You have full access now. Every notification will come directly to you." My eyes stung, but I kept my focus. "Thank you." David placed his hand on mine. "It is yours again." "Mom," Thomas cleared his throat. "There is one more thing. You can update your beneficiaries if you want." I turned to the final page. Primary beneficiary, David Hartman. Secondary beneficiary, none. Lydia's name was gone. I signed without hesitation. Caroline closed her laptop. "One more detail. Lydia's accounts connected to the stolen funds have been frozen. She will receive formal notice within 48 hours. David exhaled slowly, almost in disbelief. She is finally going to face consequences. I leaned back in my chair, feeling something inside me settle something long denied its place. It was not triumph. It was not vengeance. It was the return of ownership over a life that had been quietly taken from me. For the first time in years, I felt the weight on my chest lift, replaced by a quiet strength I thought I had lost. The first notice hit Lydia 2 days after the investigation started. David showed it to me on his phone, an official statement confirming her frozen accounts and the pending criminal review. By the end of the week, her employer had placed her on leave. Then the whispers began. Neighbors, co-workers, old friends realizing her townhouse near Hawthorne Boulevard had not been built on hard work, but on stolen stability. David came to my home that afternoon. She is spiraling, he said, but she did it to herself. I nodded. The ache was still there, but it no longer controlled me. I hope she realizes that before she blames the entire world, I used part of the restored trust to buy a small home near Selwood Riverfront Park. It was modest, quiet, close enough for David to visit, but far enough from the memories I needed to outgrow. On moving day, Margaret sat in her wheelchair, blanket over her lap, eyes bright. "This suits you," she said, squeezing my hand. "Your father would be proud of you for taking your life back." David carried the last box inside. "Mom, you deserve every good thing that comes next." I believed him. For the first time in a decade, I believed him. The morning after I settled in, a letter arrived with Lydia's handwriting on the envelope. David handed it to me slowly. "Do you want to read it?" I looked at the sealed flap, the looping script, the apology I knew would come too late. Then I placed it back in his hand. "Return it to sender." His shoulders eased. "All right." But I had one final step to take, one she would never see coming. I contacted a local elder fraud prevention program and made an anonymous donation in the amount of $12,000. I asked them to list the donation under a public dedication. In recognition of Lydia Hartman, whose actions remind us why protection matters. A month later, she would walk into a community center and see her own name displayed as the example she never wanted to become. That night, sitting in my new living room, I breathed easier than I had in years. My life was finally mine again. Thank you for staying with me through my story. If you felt something from it, leave a comment, like the video, and subscribe for more stories that matter.